Hey, we're back.
Hi everybody, happy Thursday. A little bit different day of the week for us. Apologize for being gone. I think we took 2 weeks off.
Yeah, we did. Two Sundays.
I think one was Thanksgiving we had, and the second one was getting back from a little vacation, so apologies, but we wanted to go ahead and get an episode this week. And really excited to talk about this one. We're going to talk about 3 things that you should add to your life today. That are really going to enhance it, and something that we kind of experienced a little taste of this weekend, and we wanted to share with you all. We were blessed to be able to go on a little weekend vacation with some friends out to a farm in kind of middle of nowhere, Georgia, and it was a really great time just to relax and spend time with friends. And we're going to get into 3 things that we kind of learned from that little experience that we think that you can really incorporate any day. It doesn't have to be on a specific vacation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just spending time out kind of in the middle of nowhere gives you a new perspective, even if it's just for a couple of days. And so we really enjoyed it, and we thought, hey, why don't we talk about some things that we just kind of learned about ourselves and we think could be a benefit for everyone. So.
Yeah, and I think if you think about your life almost like a recipe, sometimes these things, you can tell that something is off and you feel like, this just doesn't taste right, this doesn't feel right. And I think these 3 things are something that if you feel that way right now about your life, you can see, hey, if I add a little bit of this or a little bit of that, maybe this is going to make my life feel better and get me more where I want to go.
Absolutely.
And so the first one of those is to unplug. Like I said, this was the middle of nowhere, Georgia. There wasn't anything really around, very small towns. Some people that we were with, you couldn't get a Wi-Fi connection. Even with data, you kind of couldn't get a connection.
Maybe like one bar, if that.
And so it was really a chance to forcibly unplug from, social media, from the news, from technology, from the constant, updates that you get on your phone. It was really an opportunity to unplug from that, and it was really refreshing in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't mean that we didn't spend any time on our phones or any time. We did watch a little bit of TV, not a lot. But it was really great when we did have those moments of just unplugging. Like, for example, there was this really nice, would you call it a lake or a retention pond?
Lake, yeah.
A lake. A man-made lake. Really beautiful, and it's just gorgeous and really nice to just walk around it. And so we would just go for a walk around the property and just enjoy being out in God's creation and just smelling the fresh air and not being so focused on being plugged in. For me specifically, it was a very busy time in my business, so it was kind of an interesting juxtaposition between I really need to be working and I need to be going and doing all the things, but when I didn't have to check all those things and be on my phone all the time, because I didn't have that connection all the time, it was really nice to just unplug and just focus on being with my people and in the place that I'm in at that very moment instead of somewhere in cyberspace.
Yeah, I think, it was kind of, to be honest, it was a nostalgic weekend for me in some ways. Their place reminded me a lot of my grandparents in Tennessee. Like, you have this lane that you go down, it's the middle of nowhere, a lot of gravel roads or dirt roads, and you kind of just, there's a different feeling to it, there's a different vibe, where you can just walk around outside and there's feels, there's space, the air smells different. And it was really kind of, I think there's something special about kind of connecting back to land, to nature, that really revitalizes us and gives us energy that we don't get from this constant barrage of technology. And like you said, it kind of forces us to instead of spending time with our friends on Facebook or Twitter and people we don't even know, it forces us to spend time with people. And I think really, I think you mentioned a word, or I can't remember exactly, but focus and intent, where you can really be present. Yeah. And I know there's a guy on social media named Jesse Itzler who has a saying, he says, be where your feet are.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a cool statement, because where you're standing, where the people you're around and with, when you're with them, be with them and not be with somebody that's in cyberspace somewhere.
Exactly. I love that. I had grew up with some very big influences in my life that aren't blood related to me, but but are very near and dear to my heart. And one of them would always say to me is be where you are. Be where you are. Be in the present moment. You can't change tomorrow. You can't worry about the past. You need to just be where you are and enjoy what we have right now, because it is truly a gift. And we can't ever get these moments back. And we say that and it sort of sounds like a cliche, and we're like, oh, well, you know, that's why it's called the present. Ha ha, it's a gift. But really, for real though, there's so much truth in that. There's so much wisdom in that, because when you think about, let's say, you know, fast forward to when you're, you know, much more advanced in years, and maybe you're bound to a hospital bed. I don't know. I'm not trying to be morbid, but when you're in the final stages of your life, those little moments are going to mean so much. You're not going to be worrying about, you know, the next day or the past the same way, you know, or at least that's not what I see in a lot of people. They really treasure that present moment because they know that they have few left.
Yeah. So how do you think, you know, you can't always go to a place and be, you know, in nature. You can't go to a cabin all the time and be totally moved.
This is true.
How do you think people can incorporate that same idea into our day-to-day?
Yeah, I think this is something, you know, I've tried to work on myself. Definitely don't have it mastered, but I think something for me is something that I was listening to this training, something that we do in Arbonne is we have trainings. And the other day, a girl was talking about reducing the noise. And I think sometimes that's our problem, is we have so much noise, whether it's the phone, the TV, what we have going on, what we really need to do, because usually we know what we need to be doing, but we are distracted by all the noise. And so ways that you can reduce the noise so that you can be in the present moment, because otherwise you feel like this flutter of information. I mean, there's all these studies too about like how people like 100 years ago didn't have so much stuff, like inundated all the time, information. We say it's so cool, right? I mean, it's information age, we can Google anything, right? But being able to just help your mind like reduce all of that noise, I think is helpful. Of course, unplugging your phone, maybe having a time where your phone's on silent. For me, I turn off all the bells and whistles except for if somebody calls me. I'm like, if it's really an emergency, they can call me. I have times where I only get calls from people who are on my favorites list. That's from 10 p.m. at night to 10 a.m. the next day. I only will hear the call if it's from somebody who's on my favorites list. It's not about being rude. It's just about setting that boundary and being really intentional. Another thing I think you can do is just set aside the time. Like whether it's put your phone away, put everything away except for your Bible and spend time reading his word. Or it's put everything down and spend 5 minutes meditating. Or going for a walk outside and not taking your phone or having it on silent. It's looking in somebody's eyes and asking them how they are and really listening to what they say. I think it's also something that's so cool. I think that brings us back to the present moment is one, listening to your breath. I know that sounds weird, but literally just hearing yourself breathe back and forth, it brings you back to this present moment because you have to think about what's happening in your body, and it brings it to a more physical level. And then think about how something feels. Maybe it's the wind on your skin, or maybe it's the texture of the fabric of your clothing. Maybe it's the feel of when you pet your dog, or whatever it is. But get back to feelings, senses, smells, textures. When you're eating, really eat and taste the food instead of like scarfing it down. These are things to help bring us back to the present moment. And I think it's not like well, I did it one time and so I'm good. It's a practice. You have to really work at it. And it's something, like I said, I still have a long way to go, but I'm trying to be more intentional about coming back to the present moment and being in it fully, all of my senses.
Yeah, I think those are good ideas. A couple things I'd add is possibly one thing that I struggle with a lot is when I get out of bed. A lot of times I reach for my phone and I'm checking what's going on, what happened during the night.
Yeah.
And it's like it's like standing under a waterfall and you're just inundated with all these things that you're really not prepared to handle.
Yeah.
And a better idea would be to have a couple hours or at least a set amount of time that you're either, like you mentioned, either meditating or reading something, praying, or maybe you're just going into your workday or having a conversation, but you're not inundating your mind with all these things, and your mind, you automatically kind of are in a panic, or you're just in a heightened sense, and you're already disoriented before you can really get into your workday or whatever it is you need to do. And then secondly, I think one thing that annoys a lot of people is when you're with a group or maybe with just one person and they're on their phone and you're trying to connect with them, and they are like, they're more intent on what's going on in the phone. And so you can even buy these. You don't have to buy it, but I know you've probably seen those phone jails, they call them, where maybe when you come to the family dinner table, you all put your phone in that thing, or when you have some people over, everybody puts their phone in this phone jail, and then they only get it when they leave. And it doesn't have to be that drastic, but it could be. And it really is saying it's not even as much about taking the phone away. It's about the intention of this time we're connecting as a group, as a family, as friends, and that's what's going to be important. It's not going to be somebody on the phone or checking my email or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I guess what to add to that, I think sometimes we think checking our phone is an emergency, and it's really not. And I think we have to start. Instead of having the phone control us, we need to start controlling the phone.
Yeah, it's the difference between what's urgent and what's important.
Yeah.
Some things on our phone might be urgent. They might be now. They might be beeping. They might be buzzing. That score, you may really want to check that score. But are those things really just urgent, or are they important? And important is the people that we're around, the people we spend time with, and the connections and community that we're trying to build. So what was the next one?
The next one is laughter. And that was something we did a lot of. If you are connected with me on Instagram, you may have seen some of this game that we played where we actually put these plastic, I don't know what you would call things that like separate your mouth, like make it really big, and it makes it really hard for you to pronounce anything. And then you have to essentially like say these tongue twisters with these things in your mouth and try to get the other people on your team to guess what you're saying. And it was really fun. But beyond like playing games or whatever, it doesn't really matter exactly what the activity is, but laughter, there's so much good that does your body, your mind. There's a whole, you can look up the science behind it, but it's just really good for you. And I think one thing that I love that laughter does for me is it relaxes me. It relaxes my heart, it relaxes my mind, it relaxes my body, and it helps me to feel more free. And I think especially in 2020, where we've had so much frustration and angst, and we feel so cooped up, we need more of that. And so finding things that make you laugh, whether it's a game or maybe it's a show or a movie, or maybe it's talking with a certain friend makes you laugh. There is one friend that I can think of specifically, who I always laugh the hardest when I'm with her. I mean, I just laugh so hard. I don't know what it is, but so maybe it's calling them up, maybe it's connecting with them, but finding ways to incorporate that more into your life, I think, is so powerful, and really helps you to feel like in a better place. And to me, it's impactful that God made our bodies in such a way that laughter actually is good for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that saying laughter is the best medicine is
right.
Because there's a component of that that's definitely true. And I think, laughter, especially if you're in a group of people, you're trying to get to meet people better, having laughter between people can kind of establish a bond and a relationship, and it makes you feel more open to other conversations and a deeper connection if you're able to laugh with people.
Yeah.
And, there was just a lot of times, whether it was playing a game or just conversation or somebody telling a story that, are just really, really funny and are really great. And
we had a good time laughing.
Yeah, that was one of the the highlights of the trip, was just hearing people's stories and getting to know them better and really establishing that connection. And so I think getting being able to, and especially if you're a serious person, more seriously minded, and there has to be an aspect of being able to not take yourself so seriously, and being able to cut up a little bit, make a joke, take a joke, and that is going to just make your life better, and you're going to, like you said, you're going to feel better.
Yeah, one of the days, one of our friends noticed that in this house there was a record player, and it was like a record player cassette tape combo, and it kind of reminded me of one that my parents had growing up, and there were a ton of records underneath there, and so she just starts getting them all out and looking at all of them, and she's like, we should play some records, and she found some Christmas ones, and one of them said, I'm trying to remember, I think his name was Al Hurt, and it says he had that sweet honey horn sound. And so we were like, we've got to hear this sweet honey horn sound. And so, and she, she tried to find the record, and it wasn't in there. And so we kept looking. We did end up finding it and hearing that sweet honey horn sound. But things like that, just cutting up about life. I think it just, like you said, I think that's one of the things that I know I struggle with a lot, is just taking myself so seriously all the time that I don't have again, it's hard to come back to the present moment because I'm so stressed out about whatever else. I'm taking myself so seriously all of the time. And I do think that when you're able to laugh with somebody else and share like a joke or whatever, it does really help you to connect with people in a different way, in a different context than maybe you have before.
Yeah, and I think that leads perfectly into our other one, which is deep conversations. I think, laughter can introduce these deeper conversations that sometimes we're afraid to have. And sometimes we are not, especially if you're from a certain background or community, sometimes if you're associated with a specific community of faith, maybe even, you're less likely to have these deep conversations, and we're scared to have these deep conversations, even with people we would consider friends.
Yeah.
And this is something that we were really able to have in this group of people, was have some conversations that were uncomfortable in some ways, that you were maybe scared to, okay, should I say this about me? Should I reveal this about myself? What if I say this, are they going to think whatever about me? Or if they say that, how am I going to feel about them? But it's really important that we have these deep conversations, that there aren't all these like unspokens and things that we're afraid to share with people that are close to us.
Yeah, and I think, like Matt said, there's so many times where we avoid having these kind of conversations, again, because it's a vulnerable thing. And of course, you want to do this with people you feel safe with. We feel safe with this group, and that helped, of course. And we've kind of worked up to hanging out a good bit over the last several months. But I think having these kind of conversations opens up a door to have other conversations in the future even too. And what I mean by that is, say something came up that wasn't even in the past, you could feel more comfortable to bring that up in the future. And so I think when you have these kind of bonds and you don't, it's not like this immediate judgment rail or whatever that comes up. And I know for different groups of people, it's different. We're just talking from our experience, but it was so refreshing, even though maybe these were tough conversations, to have those deep conversations and just say like, this is what I think, and this is what I believe, or whatever, and be able to discuss that. And we all of us, six of us, have the same faith background. So that definitely, helps if you're able to have that situation. But even having that conversation to begin with, sometimes even broaching that conversation, even bringing it up, can be nerve-wracking. But when you have those conversations, I think you bond in a different way. And I think, those were the kind of conversations where they didn't include people being on their devices. Mm-hmm. It didn't, everybody was serious and wanting to talk about it, and were engaged in the conversation. Like, nobody just sat there. Everybody was talking, and we were able to just, I think, confide in each other in a different way. And again, you have to build up to that, and you have to feel comfortable with that group. We realize that this isn't like the right scenario for everyone in every situation. But I think we have an opportunity when we have those deep conversations to create a bond that's different than just having these sort of surfacey conversations that we often have, whether in person or even over social media.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that I noticed about a particular conversation we had that week was somebody had to be willing to start it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't just automatically say, hey, we're going to have this intense conversation, let's do it. Somebody has to be willing to broach the topic first.
Right.
And, it wasn't me this time. Somebody else was courageous enough to take that first step. And, so the lesson for us is to, you have to sometimes be that person who's going to bring that topic to the forefront and risk being judged, risk being ridiculed, whatever. And now a lot of times that won't happen. You'll end up having a great conversation like we did, but there is that fear and risk.
Sure.
But you have to step up and be willing to do that. And I think, the other thing is just going along with that, we need to, at least for me, I am hungry for those kind of conversations. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you mentioned a lot of times we just have superficial conversations. Right. Even with people we would consider good friends.
Yeah.
When did you really talk about some of these things that really matter in your life, that you're afraid of, that you're struggling with spiritually, that maybe health scares? I mean, your faith. I mean, how often do you really talk about those with people instead of keeping them inside and maybe talking about it with your spouse or one best friend or your parents?
Right.
Maybe I'm just in the wrong circles, but at least for me, those are conversations that I'm hungry for that I just feel like I don't have a lot.
No, I don't think you're alone in that, and I feel the same way, that I crave those kind of conversations. And I realize some people kind of intentionally avoid those because it takes vulnerability, like you said. But when you are vulnerable, this is something a friend of mine said recently. She said, when you are vulnerable and you risk stepping out and starting that conversation that's difficult, you give other people an opportunity to connect with you because they might actually feel the same way. Or they realize you're a human being. When you put up this perfect front all the time. And it's so easy to do. And of course, again, you want to find the right time and etc. Find the appropriate situation. But again, it does give you an opportunity to connect with somebody in just a totally different way. And can be a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful what you said. I just want to reiterate is because we had that conversation with those people, let's say something down the road happens to me, then that is a not safe topic. That is something I would be reticent to share, and I'm struggling with. I know with that group, I can go to them because of how they acted to what I said in that group. Mm-hmm. I know they're not going to judge me. Now, maybe they'll disagree with me and they'll say, hey, you're wrong, you need to change. Maybe they'll give me some criticism. But I know that they're not going to shy away from that, and I know they're going to be receptive to hearing what I'm going through. And so having one conversation leads to other impactful and important ones, and it's going to leave you feeling better, but also leaving the people that you had those conversations with, they're going to be able to see you now as a resource and somebody that they can come to and feel safe, sharing their struggles, sharing their fears, sharing what they're going through, because they know that you're going to treat them in an appropriate manner.
Yeah, and respect, and love, and not just jump down people's throats or whatever just for asking a question or for bringing up something, I think sometimes it's easy to do that, especially with sensitive subjects, to just jump down somebody's throat. And I think we have an opportunity there to really connect and like you said, in the future, be able to connect in a beautiful way. So yeah, I felt like that, just these three things were just wow, if I could just have more of those three things in my life, that would be great, because even though we can't go to a farm or a cabin or whatever away every weekend, it is really nice, of course, to have those occasional moments, but, bringing that more to your everyday, maybe it's you have a vulnerable conversation with somebody, you feel safe enough to bring it up with, or maybe it's you have a conversation with somebody a difficult conversation with somebody that you really care about and you want to continue to build that relationship with them, it takes bravery and it takes courage, and it is an opportunity for you to hopefully potentially have a deeper connection with them. And I don't know about you guys, but I think we really crave and desire deep connections with other people, because that's not something, it's money can't buy that. We can't, you can't do anything. It's just what you do every day, building that relationship, reaching out. That's what it takes. You can't just buy that kind of thing. So.
Definitely. I think, those three things are a recipe for a more fulfilled life. Like we said before, this No More Some Days isn't about accumulating a lot of wealth. It's not about living extravagantly. Those things take no money. Unplugging is reducing money, probably. Having deep conversations is no money. Laughing is no money. These are things that enrich your life and are going to make it more full and exciting and vibrant and more healthy. All those three things are going to make your life more healthy and physically, mentally, spiritually, if you can incorporate those. And so we'd love to hear any of your suggestions on how you do any of those three things in the comments, and we'd love to share those with you and share them with the group. And I think that's kind of it that we had for today.
Yeah, that's all we have for tonight. Lord willing, we will be back on Sunday to do this No More Some Days on Sunday. But we really appreciate you guys joining us tonight, and thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at No More Some Days with a Z. You can feel free to also email us at nomorsomedays@gmail.com. And then, let's see, what else? No More Some Days, normally spelled. You can find us on YouTube. Please subscribe and share. Feel free to share this video, whether you're watching on Instagram or on Facebook. And again, we really appreciate you. I know we just went through the Thanksgiving season, but we just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us.
Have a great night.
Bye, guys.